Welcome, Buff fans, to another edition of our opponent previews, and I'm pleased to be joined by Kevin Tresolini from Delaware Online and the News Journal. You've been covering the Blue Hens for quite a while. You can tell us that a little bit, but obviously the Buffs played Delaware week 2 at Folsom Field. And Kevin, first off, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Glad to be with you, Brian. Looking forward to talking about the Hens in this game and the upcoming season.
So, how long have you been covering Delaware? I mean, you went to school there, but how long have you really been following
Yeah,
the
I
Blue
went to
Hens?
I'm one of those crazy people who's been in his job for almost at the same place for almost 44 years. Not many people can say that anymore. But yeah, I did go to school at Delaware, and I actually covered as a student their 1979 NCAA Division II championship, which was played in Albuquerque, New Mexico. They beat Youngstown State. Um, and then I started working at the News Journal a couple of years after that, and then for our paper, I started covering them in the 1999 season. So yeah, it's been
Okay.
a while.
It's been a while. So obviously, I think when people think Delaware football, at least out here, the first thing they know of is Joe Flacco. Because he was probably the famous alum. And it's actually kind of funny for me. A little side note that these two teams have never met, but Joe Flacco and Shedeur Sanders are now teammates for the Cleveland Browns, and
Hey,
now their alma maters are going to play each other. And so I guess it's the Browns QB Bowl here. We'll call it.
yeah. That is certainly one of the ironies of it. It's funny. It's funny that you said that about Joe Flacco. That when people talk about or think about Delaware football, they think of Joe Flacco. If somebody had said that 15 years ago, it would have been Tubby Raymond, the
Yeah.
longtime coach, who became, think he was the 13th coach to win his 300th game when he won his 300th game in his last season, as it turned out, which was 2001. But it's just kind of funny the way generations change. I mean,
Yeah.
you're right. Flacco's the one to say now, but before him, people would say, "Oh, Tubby Raymond, yeah, that guy, the Delaware wing T, all that stuff." Right.
Yeah. Well, and this program obviously they should be known for more than that because they've been a really good
Yeah.
for a long time Division II program, and then for the last several years FCS program that's now moving up to the FBS this year. So they're a lot more than just Joe Flacco. I mean, they've been a really good team for a long time.
Yeah, you're right, Brian. I mean, this is a program with a rich history and tradition of winning football. They've won six national championships at various levels. The old college division that they used to call it, through wire service, national championship voting, finishing seasons ranked number one. They won that 79 Division II title that I mentioned. And then in 2003, they won it was one double A then,
Yeah.
FCS now. They won that national title, played in two more title games that same decade after that. But yeah, there is a proud and long winning tradition here. And I mentioned Delaware, former Delaware coach Tubby Raymond, Dave Nelson, who was the coach before him. I mean, they had three straight coaches who were in the College Football Hall of Fame. Bill Murray, Dave Nelson, Tubby Raymond. Not many schools can say that. When Delaware lost 8 games in the 2008 season, was it 2008? I can't remember if it was 2008. Yeah, I think it was 2008. Um, at that point, I think the only schools that had never lost 8 games in a season were like Ohio State, Michigan, Tennessee, and Delaware, or something like that.
Wow.
So yeah, long time, proud tradition, always at the level where they've been playing, always, in the top 10 in attendance figures and stuff like that. But now they're moving up, and it's going to be a challenge, no doubt about it. But certainly having that foundation, uh, that winning foundation, will help.
And when they moved up from Division II to FCS, I mean, they adjusted pretty quickly. I mean, they were a pretty good team right away.
Right
Um,
away. Yep.
and this is going to be different, I think. I mean, last year they were 9-2 and eligible for the playoffs because of the transition that they were going through, but they might have been a contender last year too. How ready is Delaware for this transition? They're going to be in Conference USA, which there's that's been the landing spot for transitioning
Yeah.
teams lately. But how do you think they're going to adjust to FBS and being in Conference USA?
Yeah. Certainly their talent, they're going to have to get more talent. They're going to have to
Yeah,
get more talented. They're going to have to get deeper everywhere. But I think they're off to a good start in that regard in terms of roster building. But the league that they're going into, yeah, as you mentioned, Brian, it's got a whole bunch of teams that just made this same move. Sam Houston State, Jacksonville State, Kennesaw State, others as well before that.
Missouri State's
Liberty.
making the same move with them this year.
Missouri State's making the
Yeah.
same move. Liberty just did it a few years ago, and they were in the Fiesta Bowl 2 years ago. So it is a challenge, but Delaware is probably as well suited for it as anybody. They already have better financial backing, a better athletic budget than most of the schools in Conference USA. Nobody can touch Liberty. Liberty is just a
Yeah.
you know a money machine with all the things they got going on. But in terms of the other schools, Delaware actually has a bigger and better athletic budget than a lot of the schools that they're joining. They're used to putting money into football. They're certainly going to have to put more money into football, but they've
Yeah.
been doing that for a long time. So that should help the transition. They've they they've played some of the Conference USA teams that they're now joining in playoff games and things like that over the years. They're undefeated again
Yeah.
against Conference USA teams, which is kind of ironic. I forget what it is, 6-0 or 7-0 or something like that.
Yeah.
They played Louisiana Tech, Jacksonville State. They just played in a playoff game in the 2021 spring season. So I think they're well suited for the transition to Conference USA, which of course is probably the least challenging of all the FBS leagues.
Yeah.
But it's a step up, and there will be some challenges for them.
Yeah, certainly. But Coach Ryan Carty, he's a Delaware grad, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. I thought of this when I was talking about Tubby Raymond. Ryan Carty, ironically, was one of Tubby Raymond's last recruits.
Okay.
And that was the lead to one of my stories when Ryan was first hired.
Actually, he
Now
was wasn't he
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 didn't
was the
play.
captain on Flacco's senior team, right?
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
He didn't play for Coach Raymond because Coach Raymond retired soon after he signed his recruiting class. But Ryan Carty was one of Tubby Raymond's last recruits, which is kind of ironic. Yeah, yeah. Ryan was a backup quarterback for Delaware. Spent 5 years there, got a little playing time. Was behind a couple guys who played in the NFL, Andy Hall, and then of course Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
But he's had a good 3 year tenure so far as the Blue Hens coach. I think a lot of people thought he was the right guy when they made the change. He's got a good background as a successful offensive coordinator, previously at New Hampshire and Sam Houston State, and of course his Delaware connections were strong, and people certainly liked that he had previous ties to the Blue Hens, and because he understands the passions that exist, the desire to win that exists here, the challenge of being expected to be good. That comes
Yeah.
with Delaware football. You're expected to be good. Yeah,
Yeah. And yeah, I'm sure the fans are still going to expect it even as you move up. But
no doubt about it.
going into year four, I mean, I wrote a story on them a couple weeks ago, so I was looking back at that and trying to refresh my memory. But I mean, they've got a lot of core guys back from last year, so it's not like they're replacing a bunch of people. You can go into this, but like I know they played three different quarterbacks last year, but two of them are back, right? And so
Right.
that's
Yep.
a key. There's some really important guys back.
Exactly. They do go into this with a pretty strong crew of returnees. Now they are going to miss Marcus Yarns, the running back who's now in the New Orleans Saints camp as a free agent. They'll certainly miss him, but they actually like the guys who were kind of ready to step up and take his place. They've got good experience throughout the lineup. I mean, I think you mentioned the quarterback, the quarterbacks, Nick Minicucci and Zach Marker have each started several games over the last 2 years.
Yeah,
Each of them started games in both 2023 and 2024. Minicucci as a true freshman because of some injuries, so that helps. And they also have a transfer from Central Florida coming in, Riley Trujillo, who'll join the quarterback competition. Um, so yeah, I mean they should be okay there. They've certainly got some experience, and they've got some young guys with some potential too. But yeah, throughout the lineup, defensively they got a couple holes to fill on the defensive line, but I think they'll be okay there. Really good in the secondary, I think. Offensive line is an experienced crew. Um, they they got to replace a couple pretty good wide receivers, but I think they'll find some guys there too.
So what, I mean, what can Buff fans expect when Delaware arrives at Folsom Field? And you and I were talking, I was looking up, I believe it's the longest trip they've ever made during the regular season going out to bowl. They've been out to some playoff games out west, but longest regular season trip. I mean, they don't really do this very often.
No, they don't. And when Delaware was an FCS program, in recent years, over the last 10 years or so, they would periodically play in an FBS program that they got trounced at Penn State a couple of years ago. I think it was 63-7. They did have Pitt on the ropes about 5 years ago, a game out there. Um, but yeah, this is going to be a really, I mean, again, even though Delaware is now an FBS school, this is a huge challenge going
Yeah,
out there to Boulder to play Colorado. It's kind of interesting. So Delaware announced this move to Conference USA at the very end of November in 2023, and about 2 weeks later, the announcement that Colorado was going to be on the schedule was kind of the first announcement of a future opponent, and it's like, okay, this is a new world. This is a
right.
new world they're going into now. If they're
Yeah,
going out to Colorado, it's going to be a real challenge. What will Colorado fans see? They'll see an offense that will be clever, that will try to throw the ball around, that will also run the ball, that will use run pass option to try to keep the defense guessing. I'm sure Coach Cardi will have some tricks up his sleeve for this one. Defensively, Delaware typically plays with a three-man line and an extra safety. Basically kind
mhm,
of a 3-3-5 with one of the linebackers. They call him a bandit, almost kind of
right.
almost like another safety, really. Now they will kind of flex into a four-man front once in a while if they feel they need to. Um, but so that's kind of what they look like. That's kind of what they'll look like on the field. And they'll see what they can do. I mean, obviously this is the first time Delaware's ever played a Big 12 school.
Yeah.
Also, so this is going to be an immense challenge for the Blue Hens going out to Boulder.
Yeah, but certainly one that you look at Colorado. I mean, Colorado history. The time I've covered them, you can't overlook them. I mean, even as Colorado's better now, but I mean, North Dakota State came in here last year and gave them a game, and it's certainly going to be a challenge. But the Buff fans know of one guy on this roster, Caleb Fourier.
Yeah.
Was a Buff just a couple years ago. I think the only catch he ever made in the game was a 2-point conversion against Stanford, I believe. But his father was an All-American tight end here, so the Fourier name is well known out here. But he goes out to Delaware last year, had a pretty good year. What can you tell us about Caleb and kind of where he's at with his development?
Yeah, he's a very valuable guy for the Blue Hens. They really like him. He had 12 catches for 134 yards and a touchdown last year. Delaware will throw to the tight ends.
Mhm.
They need the kind of versatility from a tight end that you would expect. He's got to be able to get in there and mess around, with big, strong defensive linemen and protect the quarterback and block for runners. But he'll also catch some passes. He'll go out there and he'll catch the ball and he'll be a very dependable receiver for him. One of my favorite stories that I wrote last year was about how Caleb has diabetes
Yeah.
and some of the challenges that brings when you're a college football player. He actually plays with a monitor attached to kind of like around his hip, that can kind of shoot him, the glucose or whatever it is, those with diabetes need to kind of keep their sugar levels, their glucose levels, manageable, and so he can perform at the kind of level you want to. So that was really interesting.
Yeah.
That was a really fun and interesting story to do last year in terms of Caleb. But yeah, they like him. He's
Yeah.
been he's been a good player for him, and he's going to be a big player this year. And I'm sure it's going to be an interesting homecoming for him going out to Colorado.
Yeah, real quick on that diabetes thing, it's interesting because a couple years ago, Coach Prime's daughter, Shellamai, was on the women's basketball team, and she has diabetes, and
Oh,
she and Caleb were both, as NIL was sort of getting going, they were both kind of doing some endorsement for some company that
Yeah,
does
that
those
was the story
devices.
that I,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I think it's the company that makes the little monitors that they
yep,
attach. I should have called the story up so I had the name in front of me, but
yeah. I
yeah,
can't
right,
remember what it's
exactly.
called, but there was that connection. But Caleb, he just battled so many injuries when he was at Colorado. So yeah, it was good when I went and looked to see what he was doing, that he was healthy last year. And I always felt like if he could get healthy, he was going to be a really good tight end. And so I'm glad to see him having some success in Delaware. It'll be fun to see him in Boulder. I'm sure he'll be amped up.
Yeah. He was still battling some stuff injury wise at the beginning of last year, but yeah, kind of got better then. And oh yeah, they're happy to have him.
Yeah.
He's gonna be an important contributor for Delaware this season.
Well, I'm excited to see what Delaware does. I mean, I think they're going to have success in the Conference USA. They tune up for Colorado with Delaware State, I believe, and so
Yeah.
we'll see what happens with Colorado. It's a huge one for CU. I mean, for them to have the year they want, they can't lose that game. For Delaware, I'm sure it's a big one that hey, let's prove ourselves as an FBS school, right?
Yeah, I mean, for programs like Delaware's, even when they were an FCS team, and it'll be the same just because of where they are on the
Yeah,
on the FBS food chain. This will just be one of those games where you just kind of go out there and see what happens, and they'll love just going out there and taking a shot at it.
yeah,
The atmosphere will be incredible. It'll be one of the biggest crowds they've ever played in front of. It'll be something. It'll be a challenge that they'll welcome and just try to make the most of, and obviously keep their fingers crossed that they don't lose any key guys. That's all. I think that's always number one on on the list when
yeah.
when these games come up. And they'll get a paycheck and they'll get a helpful paycheck for going out there too. So
Right.
yeah. Delaware fans are excited about it. The players are going to be excited about it, knowing that they do have a huge challenge on their hands. Again, yeah. I mean, I know Colorado's got to replace some pretty good players,
Just a couple. Yeah.
but uh, but I'm sure they got some good, some good ones waiting in the wings.
Yeah, and first time that these two teams have ever met, but Colorado does have some history playing Michigan and the winged helmets, so they've at least seen that look. And for fans that don't know, I mean, Delaware is going to look like Michigan a little bit, and
Yep.
so
Yeah,
uh,
Michigan wears Delaware style helmets, as we all
yeah,
as we all know.
right,
So
yeah,
so yeah, and that again is results from Dave Nelson, who was Delaware's coach in the 50s, having been a quarterback at Michigan on some of their great teams in the 30s and 40s, and yeah, brought that first. At first, he brought that look to Maine, and then when he came to Delaware, he brought that look to Delaware. So it's
yeah,
yeah, and some people kind of say, oh, why do you look like Michigan? Well, it's kind of become a signature look for Delaware too, just because
right,
they've had that look since the early 50s, and they've been pretty good often since the 50s. So
right.
that's 75 years of kind of building your own brand. So yeah,
Well,
yeah,
and back when Delaware starts doing it, it's not like everybody knows the Michigan brand at that point, right? I mean, in
right.
the 50s, I mean, there's not a lot of TV games on TV, things like that. But I do think, just a little side note, Delaware's got to get a game with Michigan sometime soon. I mean, that would be kind of
Yeah, that
cool.
would be fun.
It would almost look like a
They
spring game, wouldn't
played
it?
they played in lacrosse. They've played in lacrosse a couple times, and it's
Yeah,
funny because I remember going last year just to do a little video Instagram thing because it's Delaware, Michigan, and
yeah,
now Delaware doesn't always wear helmets like that in
yeah.
lacrosse, but I think when they were playing Michigan, they were. So it was kind of funny.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Kevin, I really appreciate it. Giving some insight on the Blue Hens, and it's a game I think it's fun for Buff fans because it's a new opponent and one that's going to be fired up for sure, making that jump up to FBS. And I appreciate it and enjoy covering Delaware this season. And yeah, thanks again. Appreciate it.
Hey, Brian, my pleasure. Always fun to talk about college football, especially in July, when we can't wait for it to get here. But yeah, this is going to be a huge challenge for Delaware. But again, the players, the coaches, the Blue Hen fans are gonna relish. They're going, to one of the great places to play college football, one of the great college towns in America too. Which we think we have here in Newark as well. So it should be an interesting excursion, no doubt about it. Thanks for having me, Brian. Really
You
appreciate it.
bet. Thank you. It'll be here before we know it.